Hello, this is David Ward, and as some of you may have been watching, I've been kind of putting together some things for my Captain Ted project, and this is one of the renders that I came up with. Some of you were asking for a tutorial on how I came across, or how I came up with this, so I figured, what the heck, I'll go ahead and put a little thing together for you guys to kind of see the method behind the mayhem here. This one here is the first one, well, not the first one, the first render, of course, it took forever to, not forever, but anyways, this was the first, adaptation that I came up with. This is more of like a banana tree with the solid leaves, and then I came up with also the fern type leaves for more of a normal palm tree. And you can notice the ocean is a little bit different in each one of these. This one, as some of you pointed out, you can obviously see some of the repetition of the waves here, which basically is what it is. It's just overall the ocean sim is basically, in the most basic terms, it's just a noise map that's kind of doing a deformation on a plane, and eventually you will see a pattern in the noise the smaller you make the waves and everything. So hopefully we can kind of go between something between this, which I really like, but it's not the relative size is the scale is off, so something between this and this will probably look good. So anyways, let's just see what we can do just for this tutorial. Okay, so let's start off in a blank Blender scene. I'm using Blender 2.60.5. I know there's been a few trunk releases after this, but for now this is the one I'm using. So let's go ahead and get rid of that default cube, and I'm going to add Shift-A. Going to add a cylinder. Tell you what, there is a script I can put in here. By the way, I'm just making my cylinder a little less polygon intense. I give it 12 vertices rather than 32 because that's plenty. Okay, so there's a script I can turn on so you can see exactly which keys I'm pressing and everything like that. Tell you what, let me pause the recorder and get that script running, and I'll be right back. Okay, got that running. For those of you interested in knowing where that is, I believe it's a default add-on now. You just go to your add-ons and you type in key in the search frame, and you'll see 3D view screencast keys. Just go ahead and check that. And then once you've checked that, come out here all the way down to the bottom of your properties tab and turn on screencast display. So here we are. You can see exactly which keys I'm pressing. So Alt, well, not exactly which ones, but sometimes it doesn't display the Shift and Alt buttons unless you hit another key with it or something like that. So anyways, pardon me. We have our cylinder that we created. Just tab into edit mode, scale it down some, and then scale it on the Z-axis pretty big. You can also use a curve with this, I guess, but since this is just a standard palm tree, a curve would be more useful for like a tree that has branches and things like that, which also there is a script for that, but I'm not going to get into that today. So we got our top ring, our top loop up here, and our bottom loop there. Let's Control R. Control R. I hit Shift R on accident. Control Z that. There we go. Control R, and just add a few loops in here. Just scroll on my mouse wheel to get those added. There we go. Now let's turn on the proportional editing to connected. And let's just select this middle group here, or numpad to view the front view. And let's move that. I'm changing the fall off by scrolling my mouse wheel. You can also do it with page up and page down on your keyboard. I want to give it a slight bend. Tell you what, let me put the 3D cursor right here at the base, hit the period button so it rotates around it. And I'm going to rotate that about like so. And maybe let's grab this base here and make it a Alt-S, make it a little fatter. About like so. Okay, now for the sake of the leaves that are going to be growing on here, I want to add another loop right about here. And then I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's go to our object data and add a vertex group. We're going to call this leaves. Okay, and let's select these two loops of vertices right there and go ahead and assign those to this vertex group leaves. Okay. Now, one more thing while we go back into edit mode. Let's add a seam right here. That'll be fine. Control E, mark the seam. Okay, and tab back out, and basically our palm tree trunk is done. Let's go ahead and give it a, where's it at? This window a little bigger. Smooth shading. There we are. And you know what? Why not? Let's go ahead and give it the subdivision surface modifier. And in doing so, let's come down here, back into edit mode, add one more loop down here at the bottom so we get a nice flat bottom there. Okay, so that's all we're going to do with the palm tree trunk for now. Let's go ahead and give it a ground plane. Shift A, plane, okay. And let's tab into edit mode and W, subdivide that quite a few times. Maybe, let's make it an even 10 times. There we go. And just scale it up. Pretty good size. About like so. We'll do like a, if you've ever seen the comic strip The Far Side, how they always had like just a tiny little island in the middle of the ocean. Let's do something similar to that. I'm going to grab these 4 vertices in here, make sure my fall off is still turned on, move that up on the Z-axis, and you can see it kind of just creates a bulge there. There's also another modifier you can use that will give you a mountainous type of region, but I think that's kind of overkill in this little technique. Now I'm jumping in the sculpt mode, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of variation here with my draw tool, so like so. And let's go ahead and give that a subdivision surface. And let's go ahead and pop back to object mode, smooth shading. You can see it's kind of just a decent little mound showing up there. Just move it around, get that palm tree lined up a little easier there on the apex. Okay, now let's see. Let's go ahead and add the ocean, I suppose. We do that by adding, go to our top view, Shift A, going to add another plane, and it just puts it right there where the 3D cursor was, which is at the base of the palm tree. Let's go ahead and just move it out here. Actually, let's move it out behind here so we can see it. If we look through the camera, which is the 0 button on your numpad, you can see it back there. So let's just bring it. Actually, let's get everything set up here. Let's put our 3D cursor about right there. Shift A, add an empty there. Scale it up so we can see it a little easier. And let's grab the camera, Shift select that new empty, Control P, actually not Control P, Control T, track to constraint. So now the empty will control where we're looking. We can grab the camera and move it far back so we can kind of see the island a little bit better. And let's zoom out a little bit more. If you're looking through the camera and you want to move it back and forth, you just select it and then hit G. And if you just move your mouse around, it just kind of rotates around that look at point. But if you hit the middle mouse wheel, if you have a middle mouse wheel, you can kind of scroll in and zoom in and out there. So there we go. Just kind of give it a nice artistic off-center set there. Okay, now let's grab that ocean plane. Let's go ahead and rename this plane to ocean. And you know what, while we're at it, let's go ahead and rename everything. Call this plane the island and palm tree. Okay, so now let's grab that ocean plane again. Tab into edit mode. Let's subdivide it just a couple of times. That'll be fine. And now we're going to go add a modifier, and we're going to go down here to ocean. And you can see it adds a little rough looking. It goes from the tiny square that we created to this big rough plane surface here that will be our ocean. So now we just need to change some of the settings there to make it look a little bit better. Right now the spatial size is 50, which I believe is a multiplier of the original cube size. So if we put that down to 1, looking at diamond view, wireframe view, I don't know why, diamond. Down to a spatial size of 1, it's about the original size of the cube. So, look back through our camera. Let's go ahead and put that spatial size back up to, I have to turn that eyeball back on so we can see it. Back up to, let's make it even bigger than 50. Oops. So we actually fill up our whole camera view. Actually, we don't have to do that. If we want to go back down to 50, or heck, even let's say 30. We can change our geometry repeaters right here, X and Y. So if we hit X, you can see it multiplies it in the X-axis. One more time, and then we can physically move it on the X-axis to fill up our window through there. And the Y does the to and fro. So let's move that to fill up our view space here. Okay, now back to solid view. And a little bit further there. There we go. Okay, now it looks a little choppy for our small size here. So let's change the scale right here. Let's move that a little bit further down. Let's try 0.5, see what that looks like. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell without the motion of the ocean. So what we can do to make it actually move is we have to animate our time frame right here. So right here on frame 0, we're starting off. Let's go ahead and hit I to insert a keyframe right there. Just hover your mouse over the time and hit I. And then we'll fast forward all the way to our end of our scene, which is right now at 250. And go ahead and hit I again. And this time, sorry, I bumped my microphone. Let's set this to be 20. And go ahead and hit I just to make sure it puts a keyframe. So now we rewind all the way, hit play. You can kind of see it kind of bobbing along, which works, but as you could tell, it starts off kind of slow and then gradually speeds up, which is not very realistic. So let's split our window right here. Just grab the diagonal lines right there and drag it over. And we're going to go up to our, where are we at here? Graph editor. And you can see this is the visual representation of the start and end of our animation of the time frame here. And as you can see, it kind of curves into it. So we don't want it to curve. We want to start off, hit the ground running. So if we hit A to select all of them, we're going to go W. Oops. Actually, just go down to key. Then we'll go interpolation mode. It's going to be linear. And you can see it chops off those Bezier curves and just has straight point-to-point animation. So now, rewind all the way. You can see it starts off, and it has the same speed of animation the whole time through. Okay, so let's go ahead and just merge those windows back together. And now we need to play with some of the other settings to get this to look a little bit more realistic. Right now it's just water just kind of bouncing. I want waves to be going. So what we want to do is, I believe it's the alignment and then the directions. So let's have the waves kind of going, diagonal across from up here to down here. So if we look in our top view, so we want the waves to be going basically in this diagonal progression. So let's rewind and see what it looks like now. Now, like I said, it's just kind of bubbling along there. So let's set the dampening. If we change it, the higher it is, the more fast the water's going to go. So right now it's going the opposite way that I want to go. So let's bring that, oops, the slider goes really fast. Let's go about negative 90 probably will work. Maybe a little bit more. Let's try negative 120. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Now let's look back through our camera. You can kind of see the water is kind of coming towards the camera a little bit. But it's going a little slow. Maybe we wanted to go a little faster. So let's zoom all the way to the end. And let's set this time to, click in there, let's make that 30 instead of 20. And go ahead and hit I. We don't have to worry about changing the curve because it should be already set. So you're going a little faster. Actually, this might be too fast. So let's do this. Go to your playback down here and go up here to frame dropping. Because right now, or before we click on frame dropping, it's playing each and every frame. So it's not real time. So if you choose frame dropping and hit play, it's more real time. You can see the water is actually moving quite a bit faster. And I think that works pretty good. The waves, again, are pretty good size, so let's maybe make those a little smaller. Let's change that to 0.35 maybe. And set the smallest wave to be 0. And let's make the choppiness a little higher. That'll give her some sharper waveforms there. You can see that looks quite a bit better. Okay, one more thing. Let's change the resolution up some. The higher the resolution, the more detail you're going to get in your waves. And if you want some white caps, maybe we can make this scale just a little bit bigger. Let's try 0.45, or maybe even bigger. Let's try 0.65. I like to experiment around when I'm playing with it. So that looks pretty decent. Okay, so we've got the main elements of our scene all done. The island, the water, and the palm tree. So now let's work on getting some of those palm tree leaves on here. Tell you what, let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this palm tree 01. Okay. And you know what? I'm running past 15 minutes here. I don't want to bore everyone, so I'll tell you what, this is going to be the end of part 1. And in part 2, we'll come back and we'll add materials and all the palm tree leaves and everything. So I will catch you in part 2.